Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sela Social Studies. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 19, and we're going to call this the Second Industrial Revolution, but we're also going to give it another name. We're going to call this the Gilded Age. And what the Gilded Age is the Gilded Age is a time in American history in which basically the richest men to ever walk the face of the planet lived. They lived during this time. These are men like John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt, people like that, business magnates who are really making a lot of money at this time on the backs of cheap labor. So the Second Industrial Revolution, just like today's technological revolution affects the way we as people live, like cell phones and computers and such like that, each of the revolutions prior to the 21st century improved American life in the production of goods. If you remember the first industrial revolution, you're talking about the handmade products into machine-made products. And today, most of all production is done entirely by machine, and the mass production of products is on a level that we've really never seen in history before. So each one of these revolutions saw a vast improvement, or saw actually multiple vast improvements in every step of its pathway to success. So if we were to look at the timelines of the industrial revolutions, we're looking at the first industrial revolution happened after the Revolutionary War, and it swiftly expanded after the War of 1812. So this leads to the first industrial revolution time frame spanning between the years of 1780 and about 1830. This was just before the arrival of millions of these Europeans that we learned about, the Irish and the Germans, and the Italian. Well, the Italians come later, but the Irish and the Germans coming to America, they flooded the factories in the north. And the Second Industrial Revolution is considered to be during the mid-19th century and early 20th century, which spanned the years of 1850 to 1914, or the beginning of World War I. The beginning of World War I pretty much puts a halt to this revolution. Now, it's this time frame, the 1850 to 1914, where many of the Italians and Greeks came over from Europe and took those factory jobs. The methods of production changed in each of the revolutions as well. The first industrial revolution saw the original method of production change from handmade stuff or handmade products to items being made entirely by machine. Now, through the improvement in technology and machinery during the Second Industrial Revolution, they saw a new method of increased automation being used to produce products. And this was really aided by Ford's assembly line. These products were being produced even faster than anybody could really imagine. The difference in time periods also saw the difference in what types of products were being mass-produced. In the beginning, you had textiles and cloths that took off in the South. They sold most of their raw material to Great Britain and the northern part of North America, and the American textile factories and the Lowell mills in Massachusetts were putting women to work and progressing the industry standard. And in the late 1860s, that saw the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad and other large rail transportation systems getting built across the nation. And with the introduction of the Bessemer process, steel became the newest product to be mass-produced. The power sources changed dramatically between the two revolutions as well. The original source of power right there on your left-hand side is water, moving water. This moving water forced factories to be located close to rivers. Then they invented the steam engine, and they used wood and coal, and you're able to burn it, and it produced steam, which it produced pressure, and it allowed these factories to move further from the rivers and streams and closer inland into these new urban landscapes, which included large transportation hubs. So the Second Industrial Revolution experienced power like never before as well. Resources like kerosene gas would be used instead of whale oil, which created a cleaner burning fuel, and the invention of electricity would propel the United States into a new era of mass production. Now machines can be run on electricity day and night, forcing Americans to work around the clock. The second industrial revolution also saw the shift in engine types. The first revolution used the steam engine for the life of their machinery, which used tons of valuable resources like wood and coal. But the new and improved internal gas combustion engine used gasoline to run its engine. The quality and quantity of inventions changed dramatically over time between the revolutions. It's easy to see how this happened. I mean, look at today's cell phones, right? So just a few decades ago, cell phones were not even thought of, and now cell phones, you could take pictures with it, you could take videos, you could play games, you could call people, you can watch TV, you can do all this stuff. And I mean, what else does it do? It can also make phone calls. So when inventions are compared between the two revolutions, it's definitely almost night and day. So when you talk about inventions during the first revolution, they encompass these archaic and bulky, sometimes plain and simple machines that would do the work previously done by hand. These were like the spinning jenny, the water frame, the spinning mule, the cotton gin. They were just a few of those ones that made life better, easier, made things more efficient in the early 1800s. But by the turn of the century, Americans were using more chemicals, telephones, radios. They were traveling on railroads and in the new private automobile. Thank you, Henry Ford. And the last difference that's going to be discussed is the standard of living of the working class. So during the first industrial revolution, the working conditions were awful, to say the least. Laborers were forced to work long hours, from sun up to sundown every day. They were paid very little. Working conditions were not safe. Many workers would be injured or die on the job. And towards the end of the first industrial revolution, labor unions were formed to help fight for better working conditions. During the second industrial revolution, well, the working conditions were still bad. They really didn't get much better, but they did have stronger labor unions, and conditions were improving a little bit. We'll go over a couple of examples of why conditions would improve, but they only improved really because that there would be some major catastrophes in these factories, in these quote-unquote sweatshops, and because of the catastrophes, the government would step in and make things a little bit better. There was more sewer during the second industrial revolution. Sewer and sanitation improvements started aiding into the success of the working people into the factories. The middle class starts to boom during this time. So those are like the two main differences between the first and the second industrial revolution when we're talking about power sources, standard of living, the type of fuel, the inventions. So now we're going to get into the rest of the Gilded Age now, which really starts getting into the people and into the great inventions that we have that still affect us today, and why I actually call, I borrowed this from somebody, but call the Gilded Age a golden covered turd.